Welcome back to another edition of our Walk in Christ. We are going to finally wrap up the book of Zechariah today with the discussion on the millennial reign. And I think when some people see the millennial reign, they kind of think end of times, end of the world. But remember, the millennial reign is only 1,000 years. We've had about 2,000 since the time of Christ's crucifixion to today. And so that millennial reign will last roughly, half as long as the time from Christ to now. And then after that, there's going to be a big recreation after that event. And that's one of the things that we have to keep in mind, that the millennial reign is not the end point of all time. There's the millennial reign, and then at the end of the millennial reign, there is another rebellion against God. Satan is released from his prison, gathers all the people who are following God without their heart, will come against him in one final last hurrah to get finally squashed permanently. And then it is after the millennial reign that everything starts coming on in permanently. The new creation is after this. So the millennial reign really is a capstone of what we see right here. And so we're going to be discussing this as Christ returns, crushes the enemy, rises Jerusalem higher on the hill, and rules the whole earth from there. All who do not acknowledge him are under an immediate curse. If you want to help support the channel, have a look over the website. And once again, our newsletters are turned off for the period of time. If you want to be on there, I have other means you can contact me. I'm not going to publicly push those out right here. I've just had too many spammers and too many scammers trying to reach me out through there. But if you know where to reach me and you want to get signed up or leave a comment down below, I'll see what I can do. We will turn on newsletters eventually. I got to get the AI robots figured out first. So we're close. It's just I only have a little bit of time each week to come up with solutions to that. But you can still have a look over at the bookstore. Of course, you can get the information on any of these and pick them up anywhere you like to buy books yourself online. And we do have a support page with lists to affiliates and our direct support channels there as well. So if you want to help support the channel, that is a good place to go. So with that, we are going to get started over here with our discussion through the last chapter and the last part of the last chapter of the book of Zechariah. We're going to be doing 9 through 21. So Zechariah chapter 14 at verse 9. And the Lord will be king over all the earth, and in that day the Lord will be the only one, and his name the only one. All right, so we see the Antichrist has abolished all of the religion except the worship of him. Okay, this is one of those misnomers that people have, is that God is going to eliminate all these false religions. That is not true. It is the Antichrist who is the one who eliminates all false religions, except, of course, the worship of himself. And in Revelation 13:15, we see that it was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast would even speak and cause as many as do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So whoever does not worship the beast is going to be killed. So all these coexist stickers, this is the gateway drug into the final Satanism. You're either going to be for Christ or you're going to be coexist. We're all going to get together, and then the Antichrist is going to use all of that, gather everybody together under this coexist banner, and then it's going to be an instant flip. You're going to start worshiping him or you're going to be annihilated. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. So it is the Antichrist that wipes out all the false world religions. As Christ returns, he will abolish Satan, thus reverting all worship from the one demonic source to the one godly source. And this fulfills Christ as the ultimate Messiah. In 1 Kings 8:16, since the day I brought my people Israel from Egypt, I did not choose a city out of all the tribes of Israel in which to build a house, for my name might be there. But I chose David to be over my people Israel. And it further says in Deuteronomy 12:5, but you shall seek the Lord at the place which the Lord your God will choose from all your tribes, to establish his name there for his dwelling, and there you shall come. And so we see in this instance here that Christ is the final. And so all other idolatry and, quote, freedom of religion is abolished from the land. And I specifically mentioned there freedom of religion because I talked about that specifically in a daily walk. I was talking about that with a friend of mine. And it's an interesting discussion over here. And there's a big question. Do we have freedom of religion or not? What does this mean? And so we actually address that in a daily walk. You can check that out. In Revelation 19:15, from his mouth comes a sharp sword, so that with it he may strike down the nations, and he will rule them with a rod of iron, and he treads the winepress of the fierce wrath of God, the Almighty. There is no more freedom of religion at the millennial reign. You will worship Christ, as Christ will demand you to worship him, or you are part of the rebellion. That is what you are going to see. And that is going to be the end of times there. All right, so we are going to move on to our next verses here. So Zechariah 14:10 and 11. All the land will be changed into a plain from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem. But Jerusalem will rise and remain on its site from Benjamin's gates as far as the place of the first gate to the corner gate, from the Tower of Hanal to the king's winepress. People will live in it, and there will no longer be a curse, for Jerusalem will dwell in security. And so the land is made ready. The land itself is made ready for what is going to happen here. And so Isaiah has a wonderful prophecy about this. Isaiah chapter 40, verses 3 and 4. A voice is calling, "Clear the way for the Lord in the wilderness. Make smooth in the desert a highway for our God. Let every valley be lifted up and every mountain and hill be made low. And let the rough ground become a plain and the rugged terrain a broad valley." Well, that's what's going on here at the end of times, right? Leading on in. We talked about this first happens, this channel happens, allowing the true worshipers. We talked about that last time. And now we are seeing the land physically change its place, its position, its appearance to make way for this. And we see similar evidence to this in Luke 3:4-6. As it is written in the book of the words of Isaiah, the voice of one crying in the wilderness, make ready the way of the Lord, make his path straight. The ravines will be filled, mountains and hills will be brought low. The crooked will become straight, and the roads become smooth, and all flesh will see the salvation of God. That is, again, quoting from that specific verse there. And what we see there is the physical changes to the land. The whole area for about 40 miles will be leveled flat as Jerusalem itself is elevated, indicating everybody's going to have to go uphill, even further uphill. Jerusalem is already on a hill, but it's going to go up higher. Now, they mentioned here a few different places. Geba is in the hills. These are the hills that Jonathan came through when the kingdom was first being established. We're not going to read all this, but this is when Jonathan and his armor bearer steps away from the army. They're kind of crumbing up against the Philistines, and they come out of the crag, and God hands him over to this Philistine garrison. That happened at Geba. Rimmon is the south of Israel's border. So this is kind of indicating, the different directions. Of course, Philistine territories. I think Geba was over on the west there. I think that's the direction where that one is. I didn't remember exactly. I wrote down where that was. But the people here will serve God, not yet engaging in idol worship, so nothing will be sent for destruction. So that's kind of what is going on at that part there. Now we move on to verses 12-15. So Zechariah 14:12-15. Now this will be the plague with which the Lord will strike all the peoples who have gone to war against Jerusalem. Their flesh will rot while they stand on their feet, and their eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongue will rot in their mouth. And it will come about in that day that great panic from the Lord will fall on them, and they will seize one another's hand, and the hands of one will be lifted against the hand of the other. And Judah also will fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all surrounding nations will be gathered, gold and silver and garments, and great abundance. So also, like this plague, will be a plague on the horses, the mules, the camels, the donkey, and all the cattle that will be in those camps. So we're kind of wrapping back around now, talking about what's going on at the end of times here. And so this is a parenthetical return to the battle described in more detail, what we talked about last time on this. And so a plague hits the people, causing them to rot in place. This is kind of like a supernatural leprosy, and we see such instances occur. For this time I will send all my plagues on you and your servants, on your people, so that you may know that there is no one like me in all the earth. So all these plagues are coming about them. That's from Exodus 9:14. There's another one here when Balaam is trying to speak against the Israelites. Behold, these caused the sons of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to trespass against the Lord in the matter of Pur. So a plague was among the congregation of the Lord. So Balaam, of course, what's going on in this section here is Balaam had to go and bless the people. And this really irritated Balak, who summoned him. And so he's like, I told you I can't do anything other than what God says, which is interesting because we know he's a false prophet, yet he spoke things prophetically for the people. It's one of those complicated passages that kind of shows you there's a lot more than simple black and white in the scripture. But after all these, he can no longer curse the people, but he says, well, let me tell you what to do, Balak. Get all these hubba looking Moabite women and get them to all do flashy, seductive things around the Israelites, and get God against the people by seducing them to go against his will, because they're people of the flesh. And, what do you do when some crazy, I don't know if we want to go any further on that. But the point being here, of course, is that a plague breaks out among the congregation because Balaam counseled the people to basically tempt the Israelite men into immoral sexuality with the Moabite women. And so this plague breaks out among them. We had, I think I skipped the one with the miraculous rot with Miriam, of course, gets leprosy. I didn't pull out the scriptures for that one after challenging Moses' leadership. That's kind of what's going on here. We have another instance here in, let's see, which one's this one? I have so many verses here. I lost track of exactly where I was at. Did we skip one? Yeah, no, we got one more. There you go. Numbers 25, 6-9. Then behold, one of the sons of Israel came and brought to his relatives a midnight woman, in the sight of Moses and in the sight of all the congregation, the sons of Israel, while they were weeping at the doorway of the tent of meeting. When Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he arose from the midst of the congregation, took a spear in his hand. He went after the man of Israel into the tent and pierced both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman, through the bodies. So the plague on the sons of Israel was checked. Those who died by the plague were 24,000. So the previous verse we looked at really talked about what had happened with the plague. Numbers 25, 6-9 is actually the end of that plague, even though those verses are kind of out of sequence. Basically, let's see. I had another note here as well, but it doesn't match up there, so I'm going to skip over that one there. Let me get into the next part here. So those people who did not suffer the plague in this end time, so as the millennial reign is being ushered in, this is the end of the Battle of Armageddon. The people who did not simply sit there and rot and turn leprous right before them and either fall over and die or run around terrified that leprosy has broke out, those that don't do that, they go into a mad panic. And that's kind of what we see going on here in 1 Samuel 5 and 9. After they brought it around, the hand of the Lord was against the city, the very great confusion. He smote the men of the city, both young and old, that tumors broke out on them. This is when I think I can pull out the context of this one. I think this is when the Philistines actually capture the Ark of God. So they're taking around to the various cities, and tumors are breaking out all over the place. So that's more plague coming in. But in 1 Samuel 14, 19, and 20. Well, Saul talked to the priests. The commotion in the camp of the Philistines continued to increase. So Saul said to the priest, "Withdraw your hand." Then Saul said to all the people who were with him, rallied and came to the battle. And behold, every man's sword was against this fellow, and there was a great confusion. So this is one of those battles that God was on his side. The Philistine army is actually destroying themselves. We see a similar battle take place in Judges 7:22. They blew the 300 trumpets. Then the Lord said to the Lord set the sword of one against another throughout the whole army, and the army fled as far as Bethshita towards Jerath, as far as the edges of Abel Meholah by Tabbath. And so we see in those particular instances there that, again, this is the army of only 300 people comes against the thousands and thousands. They simply, break their clay pots, reveal their torches, surround the camp, and all hail, all for the Gideon, all for the Lord, right? And then the people go into a mad dash and start killing each other. That is what is going on there. And we see another instance, 2 Chronicles 20:23. Sons of Ammon and Moab rose up against the inhabitants of Mount Seir, destroying them completely. And when they had finished the inhabitants of Seir, they helped to destroy one another. God made them crazy. They all just started killing each other. They are destroying themselves in their own particular confusions. So panic empowers the panic of all of the enemies of the Antichrist, the Antichrist soldiers in Jerusalem. They start going crazy. They start killing each other, rotting in place, falling in place, clearly supernatural. When this happens, the Israelite people are now finally empowered to fight back, and they end up plundering out the remainder of the plunder from the enemies. And then finally, even the war beasts and the horses used in battles will lose their health and their obedience and will thus become useless inside of the battle. So God destroys the ability of the people to fight for themselves, allowing God's people to overcome with God's own hand. And once they are overcome, this is what ushers in the millennial reign. So Zechariah 14:16-19. It will come about that any who are left of all the nations that went against Jerusalem will go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to celebrate the Feast of Booths, and will go about whichever of the families of the earth does not go up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, there will be no rain on them. If a family of Egypt does not go up or to enter, no rain will fall on them. It will be the plague in which the Lord smites the nations who do not go up to celebrate the Feast of Booths. This will be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all the nations who do not go up to celebrate the Feast of Booths. So if you are not engaged in the actual prescribed worship, you will have an immediate curse, kind of a return back to like Old Testament times. You got to follow these laws or we're giving you temporal punishment, which is something we do not have in this current dispensation. If we had that in our current dispensation, all the evil governments would not allow to be evil governments. God would have smited out the rulers of many nations many times over if we were still living under this. But we're going to see a return to this type of thing. All the people will enter the millennial reign, will worship God, but their children, their grandchildren throughout the generations may or may not. Now, of course, I pulled this verse in from every tribe, tongue, and nation. I looked up, behold, great multitude, no one can count, from every tribe, every nation, all the tribes, all the peoples, all the tongues, stand before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed in white robes, palm branches were in their hands. That's Revelation 7:9. But what will happen here is at this final battle, first, everybody of the Antichrist army will be completely annihilated. The scripture is clear about that. There are a whole bunch of people who are ambivalent, and this happens in any war. You look at the Civil War, you look at the World Wars, you look at any type of war that you find, even the Revolutionary War that founded America, really only like 10% or so of the people really felt strongly one way or the other to join a side. Most of the rest of the people just kind of like, ugh. The battles are coming through, and then you're mad that all these troops are going through your fields, destroying your crops. You're mad that somebody's going to come around and take lodging on all your things. You're just like, I just want to farm my stuff. All right, that's how most people are. Well, in the end of this, the whole of the Antichrist army is completely destroyed. Obviously, the Jews all enter under salvation under this point in time. The saints come back to help rule and judge. So those Christians who were raptured or died as martyrdom And then you have a whole lot of other people who somehow survived. Now, lots of them have died by the cosmic interplays of the things leading up to Great Tribulation, but the number of them will survive coming into the millennial reign. Everybody is going to do the prescribed worship. And just like any other nation, any other society, any other time in human history, we still do have that human nature. And so the first generation really understands what's going on and worships God. But the generations that come after, not so much. And we find this in Christian households. It's very rare to find a very strong Christian root that persists throughout the generations. Usually you have a very strong matriarch of the family that becomes saved out of horrible circumstances. They pass on the Christian faith to their children who kind of understands, but by the time the third generation comes around, nobody really understands the real why we went into scriptures. Give it more temporarily. It's just something on my head right now. Look at like Dave Ramsey's organization. He is so good because he completely was beat down by all these debt guys, got out of debt. He has a strong root. Now he's bringing on this whole group of people behind him that are still saying similar things. I just can't get into the show anymore because these are not people that have had this crushing feeling on them as he has had. And the same thing is going to happen with the families of the world coming in. That first generation's really going to, like, this is God. Second generation, they're kind of going to understand. By the third generation, you might have a lot of people who are like, we're just got to go and sacrifice our bulls. This is boring, but it's what we got to do. So eventually, some people are going to reject the worship of Christ. Even though like outwardly they're going to worship, but inwardly they're not. This really is the book of Malachi. It's kind of neat that Malachi follows the very next chapter in the Bible after this is Malachi, which is a whole nation of people. They're not explicitly following the idols. They're doing all the things they're supposed to do, but their heart is not in it. And that describes these people. God is going to bring about some plagues among these people nearly instantaneously. Our present world will still reap some spiritual consequences of turning from God, but in theirs it will be much more prompt. It will be much more physical and temporal. But what will happen eventually is people are going to start questioning if God is really God, if Jesus sitting on the throne is really God. There's going to be a minor rebellion against him. All right, that's what the Bible says. There's going to be a minor rebellion against him at the end of the millennial reign. So the people of the whole world gather to worship at the Feast of Booths. So all of those Old Testament feasts and sacrifices, they actually come back, which is very interesting. And we're not going to read this block of text here. Of course, Leviticus 23, 34 to 44. This is the Feast of Booths. 15th of the 7th month is the Feast of Booths. So, or the Tabernacles. So everyone had to go and live in a tent, basically. It's basically a week-long camping trip, basically what you had there. And they had to do this to parallel and remember the ancient ways. So this is parallel to how we are brought into the millennial reign. The Feast of Booths was a celebration of living among the desert for 40 years after the exodus of Egypt. We are going to come back and worship Christ in literally the same way as an illustration for how we were brought into the millennial reign. In fact, if you look at all these things, the relationship between entering the millennial reign and entering the promised land are very mirrored on many ways. All the older people will die out. All of the younger people come on in. The great miraculous works have been seen by all. And there is a call for a commemorative remembrance of what happened. But again, like all things, people are going to grow stale because we do not yet have our glorified bodies. That's something to keep in mind. But lifespans will also finally increase again. Of course, the people used to live for close to a millennial until they abused the planet or wiped out by the flood. And then with that, our lifespans dropped to 120. In the millennial reign, our lifespans go back up. That's going to happen. So some people and nations will eventually reject the annual feast and refuse to go, believing their sustenance comes from the land and not from God. Kind of like our modern age, right? There's no God. It's all up to us and the land, Save the planet. How dare you? These people will experience swift and immediate judgment for their disobedience, but this plants the seed for a final rebellion, and Satan is going to lead at the end of the millennial reign. In Revelation 27-10, we see this. When the 1,000 years is complete, that's the conclusion to the millennial reign, Satan will be released from his prison. He will come out to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for war, because he's an idiot. He didn't remember that the first time. The number of them is like the sand of the seashore. They came up on the broad plain of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city, and fire came down from heaven, devoured them. The devil who was deceived with them was thrown into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are also. Remember, they were thrown in. The beast and the false prophet are thrown in at the beginning of the millennial reign. Satan is bound in prison for a year. Now, the beast joins them in the lake of fire, and they will be tormented day and night forever. And so that's what we see going on there in Revelation with the final times. I have no idea why I have that. Oh, you know why? Because I think I had forgotten to throw the last group of verses in there. Oh, bummer. Let me see if I can find those very quickly for you guys. I'll just kind of read them on the screen. We're going to pull that up. Come on, you can do it. You can load. All right, Zechariah and 14, and we need to look at the last couple verses here. And this is 20 and 21. In that day, there will be inscribed on the bells of horses, holy to the Lord, and the cooking pots of the Lord's house will be like bowls before the altar. Every cooking pot in Jerusalem and Judah will be holy to the Lord of hosts, and all who sacrifice will come and take them and boil them, and there will no longer be a Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts in that day. And so in the final core during the millennial reign, there is a sanctification over the reign. Even common household goods are usable for sanctified purposes. So the horses will have bells praising to God. Remember that the horse was a sign of strength, but it was also one that was forbidden by Israel. Deuteronomy 17:16, you shall not multiply horses for himself. This is reference to the king, laws to the king. Nor shall he cause the people to return to Egypt to multiply horses, since the Lord has said to you, you shall never return that way again. Of course, in Psalm 33:17, also a reference, a horse is a false hope for victory, nor does it deliver anyone by its great strength. But here at the millennial reign, now horses are once again prevalent, showing that they are indeed a usable item. So this is now an item, an object of praise. So as for the pots of the land are now holy, they can now be used for these sacrifices. So prior to this time, special bowls and special pots were used for elements of the sacrifice. 2 Chronicles 35:13, they roasted the Passover animals on the fire according to the ordinance, and they boiled the holy things in the pots and kettles and pans and carried them speedily to all the lay people. And so there were special pots and special bowls used, but now every bowl can be used as a measure of sacrifices. The land is effectively cleansed by the presence of Christ inside of here. Even though the people will not have any holiness, they I was looking at the references to the Canaanites and the traders. So the people themselves will not have unholiness in them. The Canaanites and the traders are cast out. My notes are really small sometimes. And so what this basically means is amongst the holy congregation, there's not actually going to be any evil out there amongst it. But there's always going to be that little evil pocket that don't love God. And it's going to be kind of start with kind of secrecy, It's kind of like the way a secret society builds up. Either a rebellion for the positive can go against an authoritarian government, and you also can have pockets of evil growing up, like sleeper cells of terrorist units, for example, is something that could crop up as well. What we're going to see is overall, our nation will return to a peace which overtly and outwardly is one of grace, glory, peace, and obedience to the law. Because, of course, Christ is ruling on the throne, and the multitudes of believers are effectively the judges and the magistrates, uncorruptible, able to properly dispense with his judgment, with his ruling. That's effectively what we see in that millennial reign. But there's going to be these pockets of silent evil, which are going to be tempted away by the devil in the end of times. So all the world will be sanctified during the millennial reign. And in that sanctification, we are actually going to see a whole lot more of just a whole lot more of grace, a whole lot more of love, and a whole lot more of obedience, as the culture itself is now basically reverted to civilization. It's something we don't see a whole lot of right now, particularly in here big cities. So there is our conclusion to the book of Zechariah. We will be moving on next to Malachi, and then we'll be doing some New Testament epistles next. Of course, you can support the channel over there on the website at ourwalkinchrist.com/support if you want to see how you can help support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy your daily walk in our Lord.